Hey everybody, Derek here again, back with another episode of BareBones with Derek. Today, I just finished The Haunting of Hill House, written by Shirley Jackson. So that's what I'd like to take a few minutes here and chat a little bit about today. This book I read because Jim from Fantasy for the Ages and Matt at Go Read Books and I are doing our buddy read on this. This was Jim's pick. And I just finished it today, like honestly, probably half an hour ago. So I wanted to do this while things were still fresh in my mind here. So this book was published in 1959. This book's a little bit older than me, 2 years older than my dad, even. Just to give some background on the book here, the setting for it takes place at the Hill House, which is somewhere in the countryside outside of a small town somewhere called Hillsdale. And I kind of wonder if this little town isn't almost in the shadow of Hill House in kind of a way of speaking, because everybody there seems to be a little bit cranky. But we don't really know where this is, what state or anything like that. And appears to be set sometime in the 50s or 60s, probably when this book came out. From the future from there, or way in the past, anything like that. We have a few main characters. You have Dr. Montague, Luke, Theodora, and Eleanor. They would be who I consider the primary characters for this story. A few secondary characters. You have Mrs. Dudley, who is kind of like the house caretaker, and her husband appears a little bit as well. And then towards the end, you have Dr. Montague's wife showing up as well, who kind of makes a big splash in some ways. As far as the plot of this book, Dr. Montague is looking to find evidence of, I guess, definitive evidence of haunted houses or paranormal activity, that type of thing. So he wants to rent Hill House. So he does some looking around. He wants to put together, I guess, like a team of people to help him study this and look into it. So he compiles a list of people who he thinks would be worthy of helping him do this. And it was like 10, 12 people, something like that. And he sent letters out to them, which was kind of fun to read because nowadays you would just send a text message or write an email. But he wrote a letter out, sent it out in the mail, had to wait for reply. Some people he didn't hear back from, or some people he got a response back saying thanks, no thanks, that type of thing. But he did hear back from a couple people that sounded promising. He ended up sending them directions to Hill House, which is, again, kind of neat, thinking just about where we're at in, the life that we're living now. You've got just, you type it into your phone and your GPS will just take you anywhere. We end up with 4 characters at this house, at Hill House. You have Dr. Montague, the owner of the house. She wanted a member of the family there, so that you have one of her family members, Luke, there. And then we have Theodora and Eleanor that end up at the house. They set out to explore the house, the surrounding area, and just see what they can find for evidence to conclude if the house is haunted or not. And some events unfold, leading one character to have a difficult time in the house. I think is a pretty spoiler-free way to put things. What did I like about this story? I really liked the writing style. To me, it felt like stepping back in time just from some of that stuff, I mentioned, writing letters, sending directions, no GPS, that type of thing. The dialogue, how the characters interacted with each other, and just a sense of how life was a little bit slower back then. Today everything's just so go, 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 go. You got to accomplish this, this, and this, get to the next thing. And life really slowed down while they're at the house. Yes, it's supposed to be work, but it's kind of like a vacation too. And I get really bummed out when I read, like, oh, well, they woke up and they had breakfast at 8 and then, they just kind of lounged about and relaxed until 10. And, I'm just thinking like, man, that must be nice. Like, that's just not how life is. So I get a little jealous of that, I suppose. So it was nice to see kind of a snapshot of life from a different era. It was neat. I just recently watched the new season of Black Mirror, and there was an episode in that where they are remaking an old movie from, like the 30s or 40s, and just that sound of like a movie from that time period I really like, and just the way people talk back then, I really liked as well. And this was just kind of the reading version of that, so I appreciated that. What did I struggle with? A couple of the characters I struggled to keep separate in my mind. They felt like maybe they could just be one person almost. And I had text between Jim and Matt and myself a little bit about that, and to me it sounds like maybe that's just more of a me issue. They didn't really have that problem, which is fine. That was just my feelings on it. At times you're kind of left wondering if something really happened or not. And I suppose maybe that's kind of part of the horror aspect of this, but to me, I want more of that definitive answer, like, oh, did it happen or didn't it? I don't like not having an answer or being left to interpret things as I will. I would just rather have that definite answer. And then as a person, like, I don't believe in ghosts or anything like that. So that made it a little bit difficult to feel some of that horror in this story. And it's not like I blew it off like, oh, this is so stupid, like, I don't believe any of that. It's just the suspension of disbelief, I think, maybe wasn't quite there as much for me. I think, like, you want to put me in a haunted house? Sure. Maybe something will happen. I don't know. Most of the time these houses are older, right? Which is the case with Hill House. It's this, you hear in the story that it's at least 80 years old or thereabouts. So, I mean, that puts it built in like the late 1800s. I grew up in a house that was built in the late 1800s, early 1900s. So, like, that stuff, it just doesn't, I don't know. Doesn't particularly scare me, the creaks and the floorboard, stuff like that. Like, it's an old house. But this house, I mean, it did feel different because it's just the way it's described was interesting. It's very big, but things like the lines of the house, the architecture, that type of thing are not quite right. They're off a little bit, which kind of gives it a different feel, which I did like. But I never felt very scared reading this book, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And it's not like I needed some gore or some excessive violence or something like that to make me feel a little bit of horror or feel scared. Maybe I just needed something a little bit more modern for it to be up my alley. But overall, it was a pretty quick read. It was just under 300 pages, 270 pages, something like that. I'd give it a 3.5 out of 5, and I'd probably rewatch the show here. I watched the Netflix show probably shortly after it came out, and I don't really remember anything from it. I think I remember how it ended, which was different from the book. So I'm not sure about that, or if it was maybe one of Mike Flanagan's other Netflix adaptations or not. But overall, it was a pretty enjoyable reading experience, and I'm looking forward to talking about it with my friends, Jim and Matt. So keep an eye out for that coming out sometime in the future. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.